Well, we've got Dr. Nachi Sinha here, and over the next 10 weeks or so, we're going to be looking at the 10 different chapters in his latest book, Empowered and Strong Navigating Safely Through the Storms of Life. And the first chapter is called Choices, which we'll talk about today. But let's bring him on, first of all. How are you doing today?
Hi, Toby. It's so nice to be talking to you about this. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's smashing to have you here. So, before we talk about the chapter, how would you describe the book overall?
Well, the idea of the book was about sort of getting, a few basic ideas as and putting it down as easily as one could
Hmm.
to sort of in a story form. So if one was, going through a difficult time or just in general wanted to kind of look at different things, they could actually read a chapter like a story and kind of draw their own conclusions from it. So it's everyday life situations in the form of stories.
Yeah. And the first chapter, called Choices, it's all about how we shouldn't really feel guilty about decisions made in the past, right?
Yes, yes, you're right. You really got that. I mean, and it's true, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, right? I mean, most of the times it's so easy for even us personally, forget about judging somebody else, but
Yeah.
even for ourselves to look back and say, oh man, you know what? But I shouldn't have done that time 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or a month ago, and so on. But the
Hmm.
problem with thinking like that is that we're not being fair to ourselves. Because whenever we make a decision, it's usually based on multiple things. One of
Hmm.
them being, of course, what options there are that we have or choices, right? So in that story, I'm kind of trying to talk about how, if I really want to judge myself, I should be doing a good job at it and actually, look at the real circumstances that were present during that time,
Yeah.
and not kind of be hung up on the judging idea.
Mm. And there's a great analogy in the book as well about how if you tied up your friend in a chicken restaurant and asked
Right?
him to choose a meal, he
Yeah.
could have unlimited chances to come up with different ideas, but
Yeah.
they would all have to have chicken in them.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the idea being, of course, that of all the choices that were present to this friend of mine who's tied up now in a chicken restaurant, I tell him, you know what, man, go and you can have whatever you want.
Yeah.
And the guy can make 1,000 choices, right? But if he wants pizza, he's not going to get it there
Mm.
unless somehow he's able to walk away from there. And so the choices that are available dictate what we get.
Yeah. And how do you think that relates to life in general?
Well, because many times what happens is that we are stuck in circumstances where we want something different, right? I mean,
Mm.
want our lives to be different, want the way we feel to be different, different partners, all kinds of things. But what we don't realize is that at that point in time, maybe our realities, our circumstances are such that there's only limited stuff available. And especially if you look back into your past when you're thinking about making decisions or that you've already made, thinking of looking back at them, then to make good sense of them, one has to realize that maybe at the time when I made those decisions, I was in the chicken shop. So I
Mm.
can't really blame myself ending up with chicken, even though I'm not saying I should have asked for pizza. But if I wanted to blame myself for that, I should really remind myself that, yeah, but I was tied up in the chicken shop.
Yeah. Are there not times though where we did have much more options and we
Mhm.
did make the wrong choice out of the options available?
Yes, and that's where it's important to look at the complete picture, right? Because many times when we think about ourselves, see, how I feel right now will dictate my choice, right?
Mm.
Now, how I feel depends on multiple factors. For example, having a conversation with you right now. Now, I might say, I want to talk to you, but you'll say, whoa, man, what are you talking about? That's a bad choice. Well, not really for me because the power just went out or just someone just came on the door or something else happened, right? So
Mm.
now these are multiple circumstances which only I know that I'm going through. And in the present, I know that. But 5 years down the line, maybe somebody would say, hey, you messed up Toby's thing. And I said, hey,
Mm.
I don't know why I did that because I've forgotten what the exact circumstances were, right? So it becomes very important to look at the multidimensional and factors that are present at the time.
Mm. Absolutely. And why do you think the choices we make are so, why do you think it's a bad idea to regret things when we look back?
Well, I mean, it is mostly, a pervasive sort of idea, because it kind of brings out a sort of a dirty feeling of guilt, right? I mean, and then life becomes about if I could, then I would sort of thing, rather than realizing that, hang on there, I actually did. In the deepest, darkest circumstances, when whatever was possible to me, I actually did make the best choice possible to what options were available. So what was earlier a story of guilt, in reality, is now a story of victory and pride, right? So, and then it allows us to sort of lean on that in the past to remind us that if the problems come in future, I should be able to handle it because that's what I did before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the first chapter called Choices
Yeah.
from the book Empowered and Strong by Dr. Nachi Sinha. And we'll have Dr. Nachi on with us again next week to talk about coffee mug spills, the second chapter. But in the
Thank you.
meantime, many thanks for joining us today and see you next week.
Thanks.